Okay, so last week what we have started is indifference curve, right? In the slide you see the indifference curve map. And remember we have three properties of the indifference curve, right? The first one is the indifference curve is downward sloping, right? Illustrating the negative slope indifference curve. And the slopes of indifference curves called the marginal rate of substitution. And later on, we will talk a little bit about this slope. And the second property of the indifference curve is that the maps of indifference curve are the parallel curves. That means indifference curves never cross each other, right? And the last property of indifference curve is that every point, the further the indifference curve, the utility that consumers get from the consumption. All right. Now we talk a little bit about the slope. This indifference curve. So we will start with this slide about the indifference point in the indifference curve. So in this slide, you see 2 points, right? Point C and point G. Point C where Lisa buy 6 soda and 2 movies. And point G, right, when buys 1.5 sodas and Lisa get the same utility level. But the rate of substitution between the sodas and movies are different in these 2 points. All right. Now at point C, when we talk about the slope in point C, that we draw a tangent curve or the straight line which is tangent to the indifference curve at point C, right? And you see this red line when you can see that MRS equal to 2. And at point G, the rate of substitution is different. Let's say we draw a straight line to the indifference curve at point G. And if you compare the slope of these two curve straight lines, at point C, the slope is higher, right? Because the slope, because straight line is steeper, right? Steeper means higher. The slope at point C equal to 2, and the slopes at point G is 1.1 right, which is smaller. So these give you the first properties of indifference curve, that we have decreasing slope or decreasing marginal rate of substitution. I think that there is another way to prove the decreasing marginal rate of substitution. Remember the formula, right? MRS equals to movie, right? Divided by mu soda. Movies increase, right? So we move from the left to the right. If you look at the formula, now what happened to mu movie when numbers of movie increase? And the answer is marginal utilities of movies decrease, right? Because of law of diminishing marginal utility. So the top's decreasing, right? And vice versa, the numbers of sodas decrease. And because of law of diminishing marginal utility, the marginal utility of soda is increasing, right? So that's why you see the tops decreasing, the bottoms increasing, so the fraction MRS decreasing. So from the left to the right, right, when the numbers of movie increase, slope of the indifference curves that was sloping. Okay, now we special case of the indifference curve. So in this, you see this is usual shape of the indifference curve when we see the slope of the indifference curves that was is decreasing, that was sloping and decreasing. But there are two special cases when sodas and movies have special relationship. Now, the first special case, perfect substitutions. So what is perfect substitution? So substitutes means that consumers can buy these goods or combine or consume another goods with the same or similar utility or level of satisfaction. But perfect means the rate of substitutions is constant. Let's say Pepsi and Coca, right? So in stream case, we can see that Pepsi is perfect substitutes for Coca because the rate of substitution is 1 and also constant. I can consume Pepsi, I get the same exact level of satisfaction as I consume one Coca. I can substitute one Pepsi for exactly one Coca. So 2 Pepsi for 2 Coca, 3 Pepsi for 3 Coca. So the rate of substitution is 1, and that is constant. And whenever you see the rate of substitution is constant, we say that two goods are perfect substitutes. So what should be the shape of the indifference curve when two goods are perfect substitutes? So what we do is very simple. So let's say I draw two axes. One is Coca in the horizontal axis and Pepsi in the vertical axis. And I got 1 point, right? So let's say I got 4 Pepsi. These are one combinations of goods, point A. So let's say I buy 4 Pepsi, point A, and I have to find out another points to give me the same level of satisfaction as point A. Right? So I can, let's say, for Coca at point B, right? You can see that at point B, I have same utility because of 4 Pepsi could be substitutes for Coca. Or I can find out another point C where I buy 2 Pepsi and then 2 Coca. So in these figures, I found out 3 points A, B, C, giving me the same level of satisfaction. So if you connect them together, what we have is indifference curve, right? So when we connect them together, we get a straight line. and the map of indifference curve is many parallel straight lines like this, right? So we just understand one special case when two goods are perfect substitutes. And in that case, indifference curve straight line, downward sloping, and the slope of this indifference curve is constant, right? Now we move to the next case of the species goods, perfect complements. Now we talk a little bit about the complements. Complements means I buy these goods and I also buy that goods for consumption. Normally consumers buy this good and that good together. So what are perfect complements? Right? So perfect complements mean the rates of using two goods consumption, two goods, all right, at the same time are constant. And there's only one rate of combining two goods for consumption. Right? So these in the slides give you us very typical examples of two goods, the right shoes and the left shoe. Right? We can see the left shoe and the right shoes are perfect complements, right? Because if you were consumers, you have to buy or consume one right shoe and exactly one left shoe. And the rate of combining these two shoes is constant, one, right? So if you buy two pairs of shoes, you have to buy right shoes and exactly two left shoes. So I suppose that I buy, let's say, one pair of shoes and I got point A. So point A gives me one specific level of satisfaction or level of utility. I have to find out another point that give me the same levels of satisfaction as point A. So two, two, two right shoes and two left shoes. And the answer is no, right? At point B, two right shoes and two left shoes, meaning that I have two pairs of shoes. And of course, I get higher levels of satisfaction as point A, because at point A, I only have one pair of shoes. So let's say point C. So point C, that means I have only one right shoes and three left shoes. And the answer is yes, because actually I have the same level of satisfaction as point A only, because I only one pair of shoes, right? The two left shoes are redundant, right? These two left shoes do not give me any higher level of satisfaction, right? Because actually I have only one pair of shoes, right, to consume. So point C gives me the same level of satisfaction. Or let's say point D, when I have one left shoes and one four right shoes. So actually I have only one pair of shoes to consume, right? And the three remaining right shoes are redundant. So point A, point C, point D give me the same level of satisfaction. And I connect them together, and what I see is an L-shaped curve. Right? So we have L-shaped curve for this indifference curve, and we have map of the L-shaped curve right? For these special cases. So to sum up, these slides give you two special cases for indifference curve, right? Perfect substitutes when you see the straight line downward sloping indifference curve, and perfect complements when you see the L-shaped curves, right, of the indifference curve. Okay, now, so you have just started two sided stories, right? You have started that given consumers, they have given budgets, and that illustrated by the budget line. And the budget line is downward sloping, right? And given that budget line, the consumers want to get maximum utility, and the utility is illustrated by the indifference curve. So what should be the optimal consumer choice, and how we illustrate it in the figure, right? So I can write down here that given budget, but you want to maximize utility, or at the same times, if you want to get a certain level of satisfaction, so you will buy at a minimum budget. The same meaning, right? So that's why now we have to combine them together. I will use the general formulas for x as a horizontal axis, and y is analogous in the vertical axis. And budgets is illustrated by the straight line, right? And last week we started that this point is I divided by py. This is I divided by px, right? And slope of this is minus px by py, right? And the equation for budget line is px times x plus py times y is equal to income. So given budget, that means you only buy in the affordable area, which is below these budget lines or on this budget line, right? So I draw this, what we call affordable area. Now, when you buy any points in this affordable area, you will get very different level of satisfaction, right? I will draw three typical indifference curve illustrating three levels of satisfaction. One is above, one is tangent, and one is cross the affordable area. So let's say I have some points, point A, point B, point C, and point D, let's say. So if you see this figure, you see that I cannot get the level of satisfaction at point D, right? Meaning that given budget line, given the budget I have, I cannot get that level of satisfaction. Now for point A and point B, I can get the level of satisfaction at point A and B, and even point E, because A, E, and B lies on the affordable area. Point C as well, right? Point C is also in the affordable area. Point C lies on the budget line. But if you compare point C, A, E, B, and any point F inside the affordable area, right? We get the conclusion that point C, that could be the best consumption choice, right? At point C, you get the highest levels of satisfaction given the budget line. right? So what happened to point C? Point C, you see the tangent point between the budget line and the indifference curve. And in the mathematically, you will see that the slope of these two curves are the same when two lines are tangent. So what is slopes of budget line? Minus px by py. What is slopes of indifference curve? That is MRS, right? And MRS at this point, that's equal to minus MUX by MUY. So at point C, because two curves are tangent, two slopes are the same. So we get this minus px by py equal to minus MUX by MUY. Now, we deploy this formula, minus px by py, that is slopes of indifference of the budget line, equal to minus MUX by MUY, that is slopes of indifference curve. This is a MRS, right? And also we can rearrange this formula to, let's say, MUX by PYX equal to MUY by PY. That's it. Okay. So consumer choices, which is the best for consumers, is when the consumers have to buy the point when MUX by PX equal to MUY by BY. Or to put it differently, I can say that the consumers will buy at the point when the marginal utility per $1, right, for a good are the same for any other goods. So that is the first way to find out the best consumption combination of the consumers. Now the next one, as I said, the best could be if you want a certain level of satisfaction, you only buy it at the minimum budget. So that means in these figures, I have only one level of satisfaction, illustrated by a certain indifference curve like this. It's y, that is x, and this is u1 indifference curve. All right. Now, but to buy some point in this curve, you will spend a different level of budget. All right. So I draw some levels of budget like this. C, point A, point B, something like that, right? And point D, let's say. So based on figure, you see that if I want to get level of U1 satisfaction, I can buy at point A and point B and point C, right? But at point C, I spent the minimum budget compared to point A and point B. So in this case, point C could be the best consumption level for the consumers. So at the same time, you see at the point C, two curves, right? Indifference curves and the budget lines are tangent. And in the same meaning, you see the slope of these two curves are the same. And finally, you get the same formulas for the best consumption level. Okay. So the next part of the lecture is that now what we do is to study two effects when we see the change in the price. So the question for you to discuss in teams and answer me after, let's say, 5 minutes is that I starting from a point. Now we back to the best point C like this. And the question is that if the price of X change, let's say the price of X decrease, the price of Y is still the same, income is the same, but the price of X decrease. So what happened to the best consumption level or combinations of the consumers? How we illustrate it in the figure and more detail, right? I want you to separate the toric effect into two effects, right? One is substitution effects and one other is the income effect. Okay, so I give you 5 minutes every team, right? Discuss in teams and answer me after 5 minutes. Okay, so ready? Okay, so now we start from this slide. When you see the change in the price of goods, and also we illustrate the connection of the indifference curve and the budget line with how we derive the demand curve. The demand curve you started in microeconomics 1 with, you see a demand curve is downward sloping, and how to derive the demand curve. That's when we find out some points with different levels of the price, and given each levels of the price, you find out the consumption level or the quantity that you buy, right, at that specific price. So very simple, right? Now what we do is to connect the optimal consumption combination we just started in the indifference curve and budget line framework and the demand curve. And later on, we distinguish or separate effects on the consumption of consumers. So first we start from this slide, that I suppose that in the beginning, point C, that is the best consumption combination for Lisa. And you see at point C, to curve, the budget line and indifference curves are tangent. And at point C, supposing that the price of movies is $8, and at that point, leasers will buy 2 movies and 6 soda. In the following figure, I want to draw the demand curve for movies. So the horizontal axis is numbers of movies. This is exactly the same as the horizontal axis in the previous figure. But in the below figure, the vertical axis is the price, right? The price of movies. This is the quantities of movies. And what we connect with the above figure is that at point C, there are 2 movies that Lisa buy. So in the following figure, I find out 2 movies, and at $8 per 1 movies, I suppose. So we find out point A in the following figure. So to sum up, if the price of movies is $8 in the above figure, point C, this is the optimal combinations of movies and sodas, but for a movie that illustrated by point A. And point A must
lie on the demand curve for movies. Because at point A, you know that at the price of $8 per one movie, these consumers will buy 2 movies. So if you want to draw demand curve for movies, you have to change the price, right? And now we suppose that the price of movie declines from $8 to $4. So what should be the best optimal, the best consumption combinations between movies and sodas illustrated by the first figure and then the another point in the second figures. Now, in the first figure, what happened is when the price of movie decline, but the price of soda stay the same, income stay the same, and you started last week, the budget line rotate. Right, you could see that the budget line now is new one, right, from this to this line, and that's also mean leisure have a larger affordable areas, right, because the price of one good declines. With the news budget lines, what could be the best consumption for Lisa? We follow the formula that the best consumption level for one consumer is when the budget line is tangent to the indifference curve. So with the new budget line like this, these budget lines will be tangent to a new indifference curve. So let's say the indifference curves I2 at point J. So point J in this case is the new best consumption for Lisa, because at that point J, the new budget line is tangent to one indifference curve. At point J, let's say now the combinations of Lisa's is different from the previously. Now Lisa buys 6 movies, right? And 4 sodas, compared to 2 movies and 6 sodas previously. So point J in the previous figure, now we have another point in the below figure. In the below figure, the price of movies is now $4, and the quantities of movie that sodas buys is 8 movies. So we have to find, sorry, not 8, 6, right? 6 movies. So we have a point, that point B in the below figure. In the point B, you see it's the price of $4, right? The movies is 6 movies. So point A line on the demand curve, because that tell you at the price of $8, Lisa buy 2 movies. Point B is also lies on the demand curve. At point B, at the price of movies of $4, Lisa's buy 6 movies. So what is demand curve for Lisa for movies? So we connect them together, right? So if we connect point A and point B together, what we get is demand curve for movies for Lisa. And that we see the linkage or the connection between what we started in these theories from indifference curve and the budget lines and what we derive for the demand curve. Now, one other thing that we will illustrate in these 2 figures is the income effects. This is we call the price effect, right? When we see the price of one good change. In this case, the price of movie change. In this case, the price of movies stay the same. The price of soda stay the same, but the income change. So we say income effect. Okay, so we suppose that there is some declines in Lisa's income given the price of movies and the price of sodas. And what we studied last week is that when income change, the budget line shift. Income decrease, the budget line shifts downwards or inwards. Let's say the budget line decrease and the budget decrease and the new budget lines is at incomes of $28, which is parallel and inside the original budget line. So what should be the best consumption for Lisa at the new budget line? We follow the same rule. The best point is when the budget line is tangent to the indifference curve. So we have to draw another indifference curve. And that is tangent to the new budget line. So let's say at point K. So because change in income leases by at point K, right? Compared to point J, she buy only 3 sodas, right? Compared to 4 previously. And she buys only 4 movies compared to 6 previously. So what happened to the below figure? In the below figure, remember, the price of movies stay the same, nothing changed. So we have point C, the price still $4, but in this case, movies is 4 instead of 6 previously. So we have point B, now we have point C for Lisa. And point B lie on the demand curve, D none, and point C lies on another demand curve, D1, which is shift, right? Inwards from the original demand curve. Okay, so this is what we call income effect. For income effect, right, budget line shift downwards, and also the demand curve shifts leftwards. Okay, now the last part of the lecture is we just studied price effect and income effect. But now what we do is to separate more detail the price effects into the substitution effect and the income effect. Okay. That is we call the price effect. That is when the price of a good change, right? When the price of a good change, what we see is the price effect. And now we separate more detail the price effects into 2 parts. One is substitution effects and one is income effect. Okay. So we start from point C. Point C. Now point C, this is the original consumption for Lisa, the best one, given income or budget of $40, given the price of movies $8. At that point, Lisa buy 2 movies, 6 sodas. The question is, what happens if the price of movie declines from $8 to $4? So you all know, right? What happens is the budget line rotates, and that new budget line will be tangent to a new indifference curve at point J. So Lisa's change consumption point C from point C to point J. And the numbers of movie change from 2 to 6 movies. This is called price effect, right? That's what we started. So the price effects make leases by 2 movies previously, now by 6 movies now, right? When the price of movie declined from $8 to $4. So what we do next is to separate these effects, these price effects, into substitution and income effect. So first, what is substitution effect? Now, you will see substitution effects is that this is effect on the quantities of movies, but the consumers remain in the same level of satisfaction. Previously, at point C, leasers get the utility, let's say U1, right? For the indifference curve psi 1. Where should be the point when leaser get the same level of satisfaction U1 or remain on the same indifference curve, but that is effects of the price change. And the answer is very simple. We will draw imaginary budget lines, which is parallel with the new budget line. This is parallel to the new budget line, meaning that we let the price change. The price of movies is not $8, but $4. Remember, the slopes of budget line illustrate the price of tickets. So the slopes of these imaginary budget line change, meaning that we let the price change. But this imaginary budget line is still tangent to the original indifference curve. Let's say at point K. Okay, so at point K, you see that there is this tangent point between a imaginary budget line, right? Which is parallel to the new budget line, but tangent to the original utility indifference curve. So at point K, consumers get the same level of satisfaction as before. So from C to K, we call substitution effect. So 2 to 6 now is first effect 2 to 4, what we call as E. That is substitution effect. When we see leisure still get the same level of satisfaction as before. Now, but the final consumption is point J, right? So what happened from K to J? Now, if you see in the figure from K to J, two budget lines are parallel, meaning that no price effect. Price stay the same between these two budget lines, right? What changed is the income, right? Two budget lines are parallel, meaning that the income changed. In this case, meaning that because the price of movies declines, the real income of consumers of leisure increase. And that illustrated by the shift outwards from the imaginary budget line to the new budget line. So from K to J, or from 4 to 6, we call income effects. Okay, so income effect is purely the effects of income. In this case, income increase. So numbers of movie change, right, from 4 to 6. So finally, with what we do is to just separate the price effects, right, to two types of effects: substitution effects and income effect. So this to this, that means 2 to 4 movies, that is substitution effect, and 4 to 6 movie, that is income effect. So the price effects finally now could be separated into substitution effect and the income effect. Right? So that is the final part of this lecture. Okay, and from this final part of the lecture, all right, you just understand what is a price effect, what is income effect, and finally, what should be the two effects in the price effect, how we separate the price effects into substitution effects and income effect. So the question at home for you is two things is that this is figure for what we call normal good. Why we call normal good in this case? Because if you see the income effect from K to J, this is the change in increase in the movies because of increase in the income. So that means income increase, quantities increase, that is for the normal good. So we suppose that movies is normal good, and you see that types of income effect, right? When you see the budget lines shift outwards and give you more numbers of movies consumed by leisure. But thing could be different, right? When movies suppose that not normal anymore, but inferior. So if movie is inferior, you can expect that point J is not here anymore. Point J is not to the right of point K. J to the right of point K is meaning that the numbers of movie increase. But this is when movie is more normal only. But now if movie is inferior, right? It's not to the right point K anymore. It should be the left to the point K. Let's say point Q, something like that. Because at point Q to the left of point K, numbers of movie decreases. So the question for you is that you have to draw the figure. Not only these figures, but also the demand for movies feel when movies is inferior, not normal, all right? So that is for today. All right, and remember the question home for you. And I will send you the exercise for these chapters as well. Okay, so you have more time at home to prepare these questions, and I give you the answers and revision, and also next lecture in the next week. All right, that's it. And any other questions?
No.
No.
No questions. Okay. So to sum up, all right. Ngày hôm nay chúng ta đã làm một việc là đã nghiên cứu điểm tiêu dùng mới, điểm tiêu dùng gọi là điểm tiêu dùng tốt nhất, the best của người tiêu dùng khi chúng ta kết hợp hai đường bàng quan và đường ngân sách. Và chúng ta đã nghiên cứu được là nếu giá của một hàng hóa thay đổi thì chúng ta sẽ thấy được điểm cân bằng tiêu dùng của người tiêu dùng thay đổi như thế nào. Và chúng ta vẽ được đường cầu của người tiêu dùng như thế nào. Và tác động đó chúng ta gọi là price effect, ảnh hưởng giá. Chúng ta cũng nghiên cứu đến nếu như chỉ có thu nhập thay đổi thì cái điểm tiêu dùng người tiêu dùng thay đổi như thế nào và đường cầu của người tiêu dùng cũng thay đổi như thế nào. Và chúng ta gọi đó là income effect, ảnh hưởng thu nhập. Tuy nhiên đối với ảnh hưởng về giá, tức là khi giá của một hàng hóa thay đổi, về bản chất chúng ta có thể tách được hai ảnh hưởng. Một là ảnh hưởng thay thế, substitution effect, và ảnh hưởng thu nhập. Ảnh hưởng thay thế là ảnh hưởng của việc tiêu dùng thay đổi do giá thay đổi, nhưng người tiêu dùng vẫn giữ được cái mức lợi ích như cũ. Vậy muốn thể hiện điều đấy thì rõ ràng là chúng ta phải vẽ được một đường bàng quan tưởng tượng tiếp xúc với đường ngân sách, xin lỗi, tiếp xúc với đường bàng quan cũ. Đó, tiếp xúc với đường bàng quan cũ để đảm bảo là người tiêu dùng người ta có cái mức lợi ích như cũ. Thế còn cái đường ngân sách tưởng tượng đó phải song song với đường ngân sách mới khi mà giá thay đổi thì nó mới đảm bảo được. Đấy là tác động của giá thay đổi. Thế còn ảnh hưởng thu nhập là hoàn toàn chỉ là ảnh hưởng của thu nhập khi giá là giữ nguyên. Như vậy là cái ảnh hưởng thu nhập đấy là chúng ta lấy từ cái điểm tưởng tượng đó đến cái điểm tiêu dùng cuối cùng. Khi chúng ta thấy đơn giản đó chỉ là sự dịch chuyển ra bên ngoài của đường ngân sách dẫn đến tiêu dùng của người tiêu dùng thay đổi. Thì vậy chúng ta gọi là income effect. Thế còn ngày hôm nay cái chúng ta vẽ, cái chúng ta trình bày, cái chúng ta nói đấy là khi movie là normal good, hàng hóa bình thường. Tất cả cái đồ thị chúng ta vẽ ngày hôm nay là giả định movie là hàng hóa bình thường. Thế còn nhiệm vụ của các em là vẽ tương tự. Nhưng trong trường hợp movie là hàng hóa thứ cấp inferior. Đấy. Vậy thì nếu là hàng hóa thứ cấp thì đồ thị khác như thế nào? Đường cầu đối với movie sẽ khác như thế nào? Đấy, thì đấy là một cái câu hỏi các em về nghiên cứu để buổi sau chúng ta sẽ thảo luận. Buổi sau thì tuần sau chúng ta bắt đầu offline rồi, đúng không? Thì chúng ta sẽ trao đổi kỹ hơn các cái nội dung này. Các em về đọc trước nội dung của bài tiếp theo, làm các cái bài tập của bài này. Ok, and see you next week.
Ok.
Dạ,
Ok, chào các em. Ok.